One of the privileges I have doing what I do, being a part of this community, is I get a chance to cross paths with atheists to activists out there. In fact, just people of all shapes and stripes who are part of the conversation. And Sarah Rocksdale is one of those people. Sarah, it's great to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Now, I called you an atheist activist. I don't know if that's accurate, because if you go to your YouTube channel, there's sort of a potpourri of topics. Right. I mean, I was thinking you do something about like better skin and how to be healthier, and you have yoga videos, and give me the snapshot real fast of the type of content you're doing.
Right. It's very all over the place. And I started my YouTube channel like 6 years ago or so, and it was very focused on like the beauty community and that kind of thing. And I've kind of just, my interests have changed, and I started adding in kind of heavier topics that I just want to talk about. And when I actually started my YouTube channel, I was a Christian, and I became an atheist only 3.5, 4 years ago. So I kind of brought that into my channel. And now I talk about atheism, I talk about religion, and I still do all those other topics, like kind of the lighter content, but I also like to dive into things that I'm really passionate about and things that I really care about. And it's interesting to have those kind of conversations online. So
I'm looking at your dog Stevie in the background, wondering if Stevie cares.
Like yeah, he's just chilling.
What kind of dog?
We think he's some kind of spaniel mix. He's a rescue.
Oh, good for you. Yeah. Good for you. Big fan of rescues. So
yeah.
Okay, well, so like you're doing, I mean, like if I wanted better skin, because, you know, I'm 50, you know, if I want thicker hair, do I go to your channel for that? Like, can you help me with age spots and laugh lines and dark circles and all those types of things?
Oh, right.
No?
I get to work with a lot of different brands when it comes to skincare and hair products and things like that. So I could totally be that person.
Like, I want to look like Hugh Jackman. Can we start with that goal? And then you can just... Never mind.
Do you, man?
I do not believe in miracles. You know, I had you on one of our broadcasts a long time ago. We were talking about these Jesus camp type environments. Mm-hmm. And for those who may not have heard that show, you went to a Jesus camp? I mean, tell me about it.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of experience with Jesus camps. It started when I was little, and I would go to those summer Jesus camps, and it was very much like the documentary Jesus camps, and that was basically my childhood. But I grew up being indoctrinated, and then I thought I should go to this college that was actually in Griffin, Georgia. And they had more of a boot camp. It was like a Bible college hazing experience, if you will. And that was something that I didn't know fully what I was getting into at all. The pastors just made it sound like a joke. And it was a camp that actually lasted for 3 days. And I didn't know how long I was going to be there. I didn't know where I was being taken to or when we would be taken. And I kind of tell the whole story in a video on my YouTube channel, but that was kind of a different experience in itself. It was kind of like forced military training is what I've heard from people who have been in military. They've watched that video and they say, wow, that's like what we go through or what we've been through. But the difference is we actually had doctors on site and you didn't.
Now, was this the one where they kind of rousted you out in the middle of the night? And
right.
I mean, paint the picture, give me the Reader's Digest version, but I know people are insanely curious. What happened?
Sure. This was something, it was, I think, the second or third week I left. I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, and I left to go to Griffin, Georgia, and that's where this college was. It's actually in a church still. Like it was in a church then, and it still is. But I think it was the second or third week we were taken just in the middle of the night. I think it was around midnight. And we just woke up to the sounds of pastors screaming and banging on our dorm rooms and telling us that we needed to leave. And with us, we were allowed to take one personal item and also a backpack, but we had to have a duct-taped bag of sugar in our backpack. And that backpack we could never take it off during the whole camp experience. And that backpack was supposed to represent the weight of the world's sins that Jesus carried. Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But basically, they took us in the middle of the night and we were forced to exercise. We were taken we were loaded onto a bus, and we went to a campsite that was secluded. And I still don't know where that campsite was. It wasn't too far from where the church is, but...
Now, this is summer camp. Like, you were thinking, I'm going here for fun. Was that the deal, or... was it more of like a youth retreat, spiritual training?
It was more like a spiritual training thing. They just wanted to tear us down, pretty much. It lasted for 3 days, and we found out later that the pastors had ran us straight for 24 hours, and we only took breaks to eat and also to play like these weird mind games. Like the whole camp experience, we weren't allowed to sleep either. So we were basically, anytime someone started to fall asleep, they would be yelled at and we would be forced to do more workouts. There was one instance I really remember was one night we were in this dark room, and the pastors told us, you're not allowed to fall asleep, but there's pillows on the floor. You guys can lay down. You guys can do whatever. Just don't fall asleep. And then they played this old black and white documentary, and they turned out the lights. And of course, some of us started to fall asleep because we'd been working out all day in the sun. And as soon as that happened, they would just start screaming at us to wake up, and we had to go run outside up and down this hill. It was just that the whole time. It was just a lot of mind games, and yeah.
Well, as someone who, on your channel, you have a video exploration into cults and how they operate. This is classic cult behavior, right? They take away your identity. You are deprived of sleep. You are sensory deprived in a great many ways, or sensory overloaded. These are the mechanisms. These are the tools of control. Would you agree?
Right. Exactly. After that experience, I was completely I felt like I had no one to turn to, really. I tried to tell my parents what was happening, and they kind of just thought of it as this is a transition. You went away to college. You just kind of have to give it more time. And I tried to go to the Christian counselor, which I listened to you talk with Shannon Cute, and I really appreciated that episode. And she's talking about Christian counselors, because I had that experience myself. I went to the Christian counselor, and I tried to ask for help. I started self-harming, and that was a way to just show the pastors, look, I need help. I need to leave. And then I told the Christian counselor, hey, I think I'm going to kill myself after that Jesus boot camp experience. And her response to me was, well, you need to stop listening to Satan. Satan is putting these thoughts in your head. You need to listen to God. So for some reason, when she said that, it just clicked in my brain that I've gotten into something much deeper than I was ready to. This is something that I can't even get out of. What do you do? So that's why I really love organizations like Recovering from Religion, where you can actually find really helpful resources online. And that's something I wish I would have had back then. So,
talking here with YouTuber and activist and author Sarah Rocksdale. You're an author, right? You've written an ebook. What is it?
I've written an ebook. Yeah, I'm trying to write a memoir thing. Yeah, but yeah, we're working on it.
The ebook, though, is it? I thought I saw something about how to use Instagram or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's something. I wrote it last year, and it was all about Instagram, how to I basically wrote it for small businesses or people who are wanting to start some kind of following on Instagram. So that's kind of what it was geared towards.
People like me, people over 50 who have no idea why you have Instagram, if you also have Facebook, if you also have Twitter. I have these conversations. You have an Instagram account. Oh, okay. Well, no, I have Facebook. Well, no, you need Instagram. Well, why? So you can share pictures, but I can do that on Facebook. I have these conversations, Sarah. So,
all of these apps. How do you keep up with them all?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's difficult.
So this is a pretty big sea change for you. You go from lifestyle stuff and how to be healthier, how to feel your best, to let's take on superstition, religion, cults. You get into some very heavy topics, including childhood sexual abuse.
Right.
The audience then sees this happen. You're essentially in some ways changing your brand. If you look at it as a marketer, people expect this from you, and now you've moved a totally different direction. The response there has been what?
Oh gosh, I remember when I first put up a video about atheism, and I just got a lot of people unsubscribing, got a lot of angry emails from parents. My daughter watches your YouTube channel. How dare you talk about atheism? Like that kind of response. And then brands don't tend to like it, like beauty brands, especially beauty brands. They don't tend to like, if I was like this young Christian girl, it would be so promoted, but I'm not. Like I'm just not that. I'm an atheist. I'm not convinced a God exists, and I wanted to help normalize that more, because even when I made that video a few years ago, like my first atheist video, that was like the whole point of making that video, was trying to normalize it and not make it like, when I heard the word atheist, it was like this bad word, this word that's looked down upon almost. And I just wanted to point to and say, no, this is fine. Like, you can think for yourself, like have critical thinking skills, like do that for yourself. That's everything.
I'm wondering if we had a shared experience, when I first came out of the faith and I was producing my first atheist video, like the first video I had ever done that challenged my former faith and God and belief. I remember being nervous and excited and just kind of weird, but also compelled the whole time. And then whenever I released it, I was obsessed to see what was going to happen. And, did you go through any of those emotions? This is the first video on me being an atheist that I've ever done, and the cat's out of the bag. What was going on in your skull? I
kind of do this thing. Like, I'll put something online if it's kind of scary, and I'm like, no, this feels right. I'm going to do this. And then I just walk away from my computer, and then I got a lot of backlash for that. But then I also got a lot of support, which I wasn't expecting at all. So that's really refreshing to go from, I think this feels right, and I think I want to talk about this, and I'm going to do it. And then getting a lot of people upset at you, it's inevitable, and then having that support, that's kind of everything too. So it's nice. Yeah, I went through a lot of emotion, because also when I put out that video too, my family really was not happy about that. It was very, it really upset my mom. My dad actually passed away in 2010, but my brother was upset. And I think that's part of why I stepped away from it for a few years after that. And then I just came back to it, because it's too important, I feel, to not talk about these issues. I think we need to have conversations about them. So
why can't you just keep all this atheism to yourself? Why do you have to be so public about it, Sarah? You're embarrassing the family, and people are watching. How am I supposed to explain this to my friends? Any of that stuff?
All my mom's church friends and stuff. I get that a lot.
You did a video called "The 10 Harmful Effects of Religion," or 10 harmful, not the definitive 10. Mm-hmm. You want to go through a few of those? I mean, you see the damage religion does, and you wanted to define many of the specifics. You want to sort of tell us what you were thinking?
Sure. I was thinking of doing it kind of in like a chronological order, too, of how things happened. Harmful effects of religion. The first thing that comes to mind is indoctrination. And I didn't even realize I had been indoctrinated until listening to podcasts like this and hearing the word indoctrination, and then realizing, wow, that happened to me. Like, that was part of this pivotal point where I was like shocked that I had been indoctrination. And my whole childhood, I remember one of my first memories was like going to a Benny Hinn crusade. And that was scary when I was little, but now looking back at that, thinking, wow, that's wild. So indoctrination, that's one of the harmful effects. There's also a lot of sexual shame, and I talk about that in the video, where I'm bisexual, and if you're basically growing up being surrounded by homophobic people, you learn to shove that down quickly. Also, coming from sexual abuse from the time I was around like 4 or 5 till I was 10, there's already a lot of shame and guilt with just being molested, but then adding another layer of shame with religion, how if you have any sexual experiences at all, you are looked at as dirty and worthless and used up, and it just adds so much harm to your mind and the way you look at yourself or the way you think of yourself. Let's see. More things. Oh, not learning how to grieve or not knowing how to grieve. Because when I was little, growing up, I thought death was, I'll see my grandparents later. I'll see pets later. I'll see people later, and not knowing how to really fully grieve and let myself grieve. That's huge. And yeah, I list 10 points, and
I won't make you recall them all here. I'm not going to put you on the spot. Okay. But I mean, that's good stuff. And it's really true.
Yeah.
I found in my own life that, when I discarded the idea of heaven because I didn't see any evidence for it, it sort of made precious and more urgent every moment here. Did that happen for you? Yeah. There is no second shot, so we got to do it now kind of deal, right?
Definitely. I'd go through that almost every day. I try to be mindful of that every day. And each of those little moments, like spending time with your loved ones, your friends, that is something I do think about quite a bit. And I try to be aware of it each day.
So on your channel, you talk about yoga. It's funny, there are some Christian circles that are terrified of yoga because they think it's of the devil. Have you heard that before?
Actually, that was a church I used to go to. Was it Pastor John Lindell from James River Assembly? I went to that church with my family. And when that story came out, I was like, whoa, this is getting a lot of attention.
Now, specifically, what kind of stuff did you hear them saying about yoga? Like demonic or something, or what? Right,
that it's just opening yourself up to different energies or demonic presence, that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, you're doing a workout. In my mind, I'm thinking you're just stretching. You're doing a workout. And I know some people get kind of into the woo-woo-ness of things, but I don't. I don't at all. I just look at yoga as, this is a workout. You don't have to do it. You can do other
Rocksdale. Yeah. Look, I have two questions. Mm-hmm. One is, if I do yoga, I've heard it'll kick your ass. Is that true?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah, it will.
You think, yoga. And then the people I know who've gone to do serious yoga, they say it is just, it's really intense. They love it.
Yeah. Some of it, I had never tried hot yoga, but I actually have Jillian Michaels' app, and that'll kick your ass.
How hot is hot? I mean, we're talking about 100-degree room. What?
I don't even want to go there. I'm like, that seems too much, because you already you're holding poses and you feel your body start sweating, and you're like, imagine doing this in heat. Ugh.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. It's not for me. My second question is if I try yoga, do I have to wear the pants?
You don't have to wear the pants.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Because it'd be you don't want to put me in yoga. It'd be like shoving a bunch of cauliflower into some pantyhose. You do not want that, Sarah. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about you tackling Islam? I mean,
sure.
I don't see enough of this in the atheist movement. I mean, there's a lot of it, but there's not enough considering the urgency of the Islam problem.
Right.
What possessed you, one who vlogs and blogs and communicates about yoga and lifestyle tips and those types of things, to all of a sudden jump into the Islam bucket?
Islam. This started months ago. It started last year. I was actually listening to Sam Harris's podcast, Waking Up, and I came across the episode with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and I knew absolutely nothing about Islam. I've heard people talk about it, but I didn't get into those discussions at all. And I just remember hearing Sam introduce Ayaan and then listening to that episode, and I was just left kind of speechless and wondering more about it. So I thought, I need to read her work. So the first book of hers I read was Infidel, and that just, I had to stop to take crying breaks because it affected me that much. Just reading her story and learning about how many people go through that kind of experience and don't get out. And that it just really affected me. And I also visited the 9/11 Memorial and Museum with my husband in New York, and that was back in May. And just walking into that experience and seeing everything, and I also, I don't know, I just felt so much walking around just the memorial outside and then looking up at the Freedom Tower and feeling like this sense of hope, but also like this deep sadness and just wanting to know more about Islam. And I started reading the Quran, and I found that to be just depressing and very repetitive. And
I was going to say, just you can say boring as hell, because that was my impression. It's just like, this is Sominex in text form, right?
How many times do you have to read? God is merciful, but he's also very vengeful. Like, over and over. I'm like, okay, I get it. This book is already slim. It could be way slimmer if it wasn't.
Praise be upon him. Praise be upon him. Peace be upon him. Peace be upon him.
Yeah. And then hearing, I love listening to Sarah Haider. I love listening to Muhammad Syed and Yasmin Muhammad. And I was just listening to people come from that religion. And it made me want to take action. I can't hear that and not want to do something. And then I was learning about honor killings. And that completely shook me. That really deeply affected me. And learning about FGM, learning about these suicide bombings. And
now, to explain FGM for those who may not be familiar with that term.
FGM, female genital mutilation. Basically, it's a correct me if I'm wrong.
Barbaric, you can say.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's different forms of doing that, but it's terrifying. A little girl going through the experience. I don't know how much I can say on your podcast.
You can say as much as you want. I mean, we've actually shown not video of the procedure, but there've been images. Right. They hold the little girl down,
right.
And then they take a razor blade.
Right.
And, it's just terrifying.
It's a clerectomy, and then sewing her shut.
Yeah.
How much harm is that doing on your? It's infuriating to me. And people thinking that's a good thing. Like, where, it drives me insane. So when people
Christopher Hitchens again, you're like, religion poisons everything.
Yeah, everything. Yeah. So when I hear people speak out against it, especially people who have come from the religion, but people like you and me who don't come from that religion at all, and they want to speak up, we have the right, and I think the obligation to do so. I mean, if you see something that's harmful, we should be bringing more attention to it to help change it if we can, because that's where this whole thing starts, is awareness and conversation and exposing harmful ideology. So when I've actually gotten letters from young girls since I started speaking up about Islam, when I've made these like YouTube videos, I've talked about the hijab, I've talked about just Islam, and I plan to do more videos like that. But I've heard from girls who say, like, my father, he decides everything for me. I'm not allowed to have a choice in who I marry. I don't have a choice in what I wear. I have no freedom. I don't have a voice. And seeing your videos online is helpful, and it is bringing attention to this. So I feel like social media is kind of helping change things, especially when you see organizations like Free Hearts, Free Minds. And that's helping so many people come out of Islam and helping them deal with the aftermath of coming from such a harmful religion. Seeing ex-Muslims of North America doing so much good. I just want to point people to those, like, the best resources. So I want to keep speaking up about this. I'm still diving into it more because there's so much, I think, even now to learn and continue to learn. But I continue to learn from, again, like people like Yasmin Muhammad. I really admire and applaud the work that she does.
So, I see like Linda Sarsour at the...
Yeah. Oh, man. Linda.
One of the founders and organizers of the Women's March, which I think is a meritorious movement, right? But you see these really unfortunate sort of key people at the source, and she's talking about Islam, and she's essentially defending the covering of the woman, and it's liberating women, and blah blah blah. And I see Yasmin and other people, Sarah Haider and others, who are just shaking their heads. You count yourself. And when you look at the Women's March in relation to its organizers, what are your thoughts?
It's I just wish people would do a little bit more research before supporting certain people or certain I guess events and things like that. I really do agree with things like what Yasmin points to and what Sarah's pointed to is this is not something to be celebrated when people are voicing about the hijab as not a tool of oppression. Just because it's not oppressive to you doesn't mean it's not oppressive to other women. And that's where I just keep kind of going back to. I feel like Linda Sarsour is just very dishonest. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I had, I think I retweeted something that Yasmin Mohammed had posted criticizing the hijab and the fact that these sort of woke progressives have decided that in order promoting the hijab is a demonstration of acceptance. And so I'm like, well, we should never tell anybody else what to wear, but let's stop celebrating this tool of oppression. I mean, we don't have to put it up on a pedestal. And I'm amazed at a couple of things. First of all, I was just bombarded with people who said, well, you're a cis white Western male. I
saw that, actually. I was like, oh, no.
You are not qualified. And I'm like, why am I not qualified to be a part of a conversation about human rights? It's ridiculous. These weird purity tests are crazy. And the second thing that struck me was they were answering a question I never asked or responding to a statement I never made. So they're like, who are you to tell a woman what to wear?
Oh,
and my original statement, of course, is not telling anyone what to wear. It's let's not celebrate a tool of oppression.
Right. That wasn't the point.
Seems simple. I mean, you've seen instances of this. It seems like there was a tremendous number of people who call themselves enlightened thinkers who just seem eager to miss the point.
Right? It's very frustrating. I think, was it Majid Nawaz calls them the regressive left. And when we can't have honest conversation, it kind of can be infuriating. I understand some people, they seem to try to have these good intentions, but when you're not really understanding the point, just trying to explain it differently to them or something. But I saw that when that was happening to you, like on Twitter, and that I've also gotten that kind of backlash where I'll start talking about Islam or I'll start talking about the hijab. And then people just say, well, you shouldn't be talking about this because it's not your religion. You don't come from it. Like, how dare you? Like, you can stick to talking about Christianity. I don't care about that, but don't talk about my religion. And I think, you know what? That I can have a say in this. It's my freedom of choice. It's my freedom of speech. And I would love for someone to come to my defense. Like, I thought of kind of like the whole sexual abuse thing. Like, I would love, no, maybe you guys aren't in my family or whatever, but I would love people to have defended me. Like, you don't have to be a part of the issue to draw attention to it and say, hey, this is messed up. It's just human rights and fighting for people's freedoms.
Think about, if you and I, like if I was walking by and I saw somebody who was being mistreated by somebody else in a fundamentalist Islamic home culture, whatever, I can't imagine that the person being abused would look up and say, ah, shit, he's white or, he's male. I mean, I think they'd be saying, help, a fellow human being, come to my aid, empathize. Armin Navabi talks a lot about how even if I don't know what you've been through, you can tell me what you've been through. You can communicate. You can give your story. And we can, pain and sadness and worry and fear and hope and the desire for freedom, these are all sort of innate human things. So even if I haven't been through your exact experience, I can still learn from your experience and be a more enlightened person at the end of the day. So
exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah.
You and I get off on a tangent, Sarah, and that's what happens.
Human experience, and we're all in this together. Can we help?
Here with Sarah Rocksdale. Forgive me for interrupting. I'm sorry. I'm just, you had mentioned, do you feel like that in fundamentalist Islamic cultures that the abuse of women is something largely ignored by the West? Do you think that we are, that we just don't seem to talk about it, and yet it's epidemic? Yes?
Yeah.
No?
That's what I wanted to do, like a video series on upcoming. And I'm thinking, is this too much? And I'm like, no, this is what women are going through. And I want to bring attention to it because, here in the West, I know it's Me Too. Like, that's that's the big thing here. And I'm thinking, if you really are a feminist, and when I call myself a feminist, I just think men and women should be equal. Like, I'm not man hating. I'm not doing anything radical. I'm just thinking it should be equal. But why can't we be aware and draw attention to what's going on in other places and also here in America? Because honor killings do happen here in America too. And I think with the religion of Islam, it is the most problematic and dangerous, harmful religion of our time still. And that's why we need to keep pressing this. And I think, again, with the help of social media, things are starting to change. When you see, especially ex-Muslims, make YouTube videos or tweet about these issues, it really does make a difference. And look at what happened with Rahaf. Things are happening, and it needs to keep going. We just need to press on, I think. I was thinking about doing a video series about that specifically, and I'm thinking, okay.
I look forward to seeing how the health and beauty and lifestyle audience responds to that particular offering. But but I think it's an important discussion. You'd mentioned Rahaf. This is someone who is escaping an Islamic family. Was she in the Thailand airport?
I think so.
Yeah, and her family, she was trying to escape her family. She was trying to escape radical Islam or Islam in general. She was trying to get asylum. Before it was over, her family is essentially at the hotel door almost. You've got death threats from members of her family. I think it was her uncle who said he would behead her. She feared for her life. She goes on social media and she pleads for help. And all of a sudden, it's like a wildfire. Everybody starts sharing the live video and the story, and people are putting pressure on the embassies, and news agencies like ABC Australia and others got involved. And we saw the power of social media, which I think saved her life. Like, she would have been another death statistic, or would have just been unknown. Her death would have never been known.
Right.
And now she is safe in Canada. Canada's given her asylum. She has...
Canada. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to have seen us take some leadership on that. I'd like to have seen the United States jump in on that. But
right. That was amazing. And I remember first seeing that on Twitter and just, that was...
Were you as stressed out as the rest of us were?
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of speechless. I just remember that unfolding and thinking, what can we do? And people just took action. People started taking action on Twitter and making her voice visible. That's what we need to do more of.
It didn't start with governments. Didn't start with these big power corporations or media. It was just people. People
caring.
And so if anybody says you'll never make a difference, it doesn't really matter. She's a case study in why that's absolutely wrong, and we have to keep kicking.
Right, exactly.
Sarah Rocksdale, you have a video that talks about how the person who abused you apologized.
Yeah.
And you talk as much or as little about this as you want, but
sure.
Can you walk me through that? The person who abused you said, I'm so sorry that I did this. Yeah. What's that about? What's that like? What's your response?
Right. I did not see that coming at all. I had talked about sexual abuse in a couple YouTube videos, just putting them out there. And I got a Facebook message from the person who had abused me from when I was like around 4 or 5 until I was 10. And he sent me an apology on Facebook. And at first I saw it pop up and I'm like, oh God, like I actually gave it to my husband to look at because I'm like, I don't know, should I read this? And he's like, he read it first and he's like, no, you should look at this if you want to. You don't have to, but he's actually being sincere and he's trying to apologize. And I was like, okay. So I read it and I felt a lot of compassion towards him. He apologized for what he did. And on top of that, he also said, when I was little, I was raped. And in my mind, I thought I was helping you. And I instantly kind of saw him as this little boy who's just been hurt and not getting help. I don't know if he's told anyone else. So I don't know. In my mind, I instantly, I said in the video, hey, I forgave you a long time ago. And it still is painful, but I forgave you a long time ago. And I don't know if he's watched that video or not, but it's out there on the internet. So
forgiveness is such a big step.
Yeah.
Such a big thing. Many people say they'll never. And,
right.
you know, and that's totally up to them. They can decide what they will or will not do. But in your mind, rather than see, I don't know, did you forgive him to kind of release yourself from that, or walk me through that?
I think in a way, yeah. Release, yeah. And also, I think it's, for a long time, when you are abused, you try to protect the person who's hurting you. And I think with me, it was because it was a family member, and I was just trying to keep this secret because I didn't want to break up the family, which in fact happened when I did eventually tell, unfortunately. My family just wanted me to stop talking, like, don't talk about it. Let's just sweep this under the rug kind of thing. And I stopped being invited to holiday gatherings and things like that because they were upset about the whole issue, but they came to his defense. So I was angry about a few things, like the abuse and then how my family responded, and it just ending up very poorly. But I think part of the whole forgiveness process for me is just being able to look at this event that happened in my life and be able to kind of feel that pain, but forgiveness in the way of being able to kind of let it go. And also just for him as well. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, I think forgiveness, it was in a way kind of for me and letting go, and also for him. Because I think, I don't know.
I don't mean to put you on the spot there. It's just, you know, it's an amazing thing. And it's such a polarizing thing because it, you know, this type of abuse is responsible for such deep and often lifelong hurt, so many scars and wounds, you know. And so I think everybody has to take that journey on their own. But I'm glad that your story is being shared by you so that you could perhaps encourage others. You're just amazing. And I see little Stevie scratching back there, so give him an extra scratch for us.
I will.
And I'll put the link to your YouTube channel in the description box. I appreciate all the work you're doing. I look forward for the opportunity for our paths to cross here, you know, maybe at the convention circuit or something like that. And in the meantime, everybody go check out Sarah Rocksdale's YouTube channel, and I'll be in contact with you about the facial tips and the Hugh Jackman thing. All right. We'll do a makeover. All right.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see you then.
All right. Thanks, Seth.